So this video is about life cycles of unfamiliar organisms. It's part of the meiosis section of the specification, and we're going to look at things like ferns or Daphnia, so things that don't have the life cycle that you might be used to. For example, in humans, where you have an adult, a diploid, a male adult and a female adult, both diploid. They produce haploid gametes. They fuse to restore the diploid number. That organism will then grow by mitosis back into an adult, and the process continues. These are different to that. So there's quite a nice framework here of things that you could be expected to do with life cycles of unfamiliar organisms. So you could be expected to indicate which arrows are showing the process of mitosis and meiosis. You could be asked to annotate when things are haploid or diploid and indicate the number of chromosomes as well, as you can see in here. So let's do this one together as an example. It's often easier to start with the gamete, so the zygote, because you know the zygote has to be 2N, it has to be diploid. In this question it tells us that this is diploid, so we know that going from the zygote to a diploid organism must be mitosis. So it must be mitosis. So the diploid organism must also be the diploid organism must also be 2N. So they must have 64, same as the chromosomes, the same as the zygote, so more than in humans. You can see here that we're going from 64 to 32. So we're halving the number of chromosomes. So this spore is going to have one copy of each. So that must be meiosis. The spore must be N, must be haploid. We're then going from haploid N to haploid N. So this must be, if we've got the same number of chromosomes, mitosis. Those spores are growing into a haploid organism. That's very different from the human life cycle. So you would have some haploid organisms that are male and some haploid organisms that are female, or parts of the haploid organism that produce male gametes, or parts of the haploid organism that produce female gametes. Gametes always have to be so zygotes always have to be diploid, gametes always have to be haploid. So these must be N. So if we've got the haploid number of chromosomes as 32, these must also be 32. So if you have a quick look at this life cycle of a fern, and if you pause the video and then have a go yourself, and then see if you were right afterwards. So if we start off with the same principle, we know the zygote has to be diploid, so 2N. We can also see from this picture, stage A, this organism here, this must be the diploid number of chromosomes because we've got half the number there, so that must be one copy of each. So going from this picture to the next one, the spore producing plant in this case must be 2N. The first time that we see the haploid must be the spores, so spores must be N. So that means that meiosis must be occurring here. I forgot to put in before that the zygote growing into the spore producing plant must be mitosis. So again from 2N to 2N. We've now got the spores, and they grow into a gamete producing plant, so that must be mitosis. You can't get less than N, so the gamete producing plant must be N. We know that gametes are also haploid, so they're N. So the gametes are actually being produced by a process of mitosis. And then the gametes fuse together and fertilisation produce the diploid zygote. So the next life cycle is a bit different. So this is Daphnia. So if you just have a look at this first, and maybe pause the video and try and make sense of what you'd annotate where. Okay, so Daphnia can actually undergo two different life cycles. If I split this in half here, so this female must be diploid. Okay, so that's 2N. This can undergo asexual reproduction. This might be if environmental conditions are harsh, hostile, so it can divide and reproduce rapidly in times of stress. So the female would produce diploid eggs through the process of mitosis. They would then grow through the process of mitosis back into the adult female, and that process could continue, and that's rapid. So if the population falls due to hostile environmental conditions, you can quickly re-establish the population. The other side is sexual reproduction. And so the female, the diploid female, can undergo meiosis to produce haploid organisms. These haploid organisms then undergo mitosis to produce haploid gametes. And then those gametes fuse to restore the diploid number in your zygote. Please click on this video link and have a look at this example of a real life example of an unfamiliar life cycle. You can use this QR code here if you wish, or there's the YouTube link here, or you can type this into YouTube. It also gives an excellent example of the uses of a light microscope. You can view living processes in colour occurring.